Hello guys, this is PA-SIYENSIYA, the show that empowers your science knowledge. Do you have any ideas about the three conceptions of motions that were introduced by Aristotle and Galileo? Well, let's find out.
Aristotle's point of view in vertical motion. The elements of the earth move down to its natural resting place, just like the water where its natural place is just above earth, and the air rises leaps upwards. Aristotle stated that heavier objects should fall vertically faster than the light ones, just like the notebook and the piece of paper. As you can see, the first one to fall between the two objects is the notebook. Since the notebook is heavier than the paper, it will obviously the first one to fall.
Galileo's point of view in vertical motion. Galileo stated that objects move downward because gravity disturbs their motion. He claimed that heavy and light objects drop in the same way. As you can see in the video, there are two different objects with different masses, which are the ball and the feather. As you can see, although the objects have different masses, they both fall at the same time, which contradict Aristotle's perception of vertical motion. It became possible because in the experiment, as you can see, there were no presence of gravity, which justified Galileo's point of view in vertical motion that can be possible in vacuum only.
Galileo's point of view in horizontal motion. Galileo proposed that objects move at a constant velocity, requiring no force to keep them moving, unless acted upon by friction. In our example, the coin continues to move forward but stop when it hit the wall, which serves as a friction. It continues to move forward after the force was applied and loses its energy and stops only when there is an interference. Aristotle's point of view in horizontal motion. Motion refers to a change in position with respect to time. Aristotle's point of view in horizontal motion states that force is needed to keep an object moving horizontally. It needs force for it to continue moving, just like what our example is. As you can see, we have force coming from the push to the ball. It moves forward with accordance to the force that was applied, but as the force was lessened, the ball stopped moving, which justifies what Aristotle is claiming that objects need force in order to move.
Aristotle's point of view in projectile motion. In Aristotle's theory of motion, projectiles were pushed along by an external force which was transmitted through the air. His medieval successor internalized this force in the projectile itself and called it impetus. This impetus caused the object to move in a straight line until it was expanded, at which point the object fell straight to the ground. We have the ballistic. A ball was pushed by the rubber thing. You can see that the ball was pushed by the rubber and transmitted through the air. Galileo's point of view in projectile motion. The ball, thus accelerated, rolled over the tabletop with uniform motion and fell off the edge of the table where it hit the floor and left a small mark. The mark allowed the horizontal and vertical distance traveled by the ball to be measured. By varying the ball's horizontal velocity and vertical drop, Galileo's point of view in projectile motion was able to determine that the path of the projectile is parabolic.
And now you know the differences and similarities of the three conceptions of motions that were introduced by Aristotle and Galileo. Now, let's move on.
Galileo proposed that objects moving at constant velocity does not require force to keep them moving, unless acted upon by friction. In his experiment A, if a ball is placed in an inclined plane, it will roll downward and will reach a lower height than the initial height because of the friction. For the experiment B, without friction, the ball would return to its original height. For experiment C, without friction and reduced angle of the opposite inclined plane, the ball will return to its original height even if the angle change. Galileo described the motion of falling object as uniformly accelerated. Then he added the concept of mean speed rule, which refers to the time for an object to travel a distance and be uniformly accelerated. The next experiment approximated his observation in free fall. His setup of less friction, speed and resistance relied in the fact that free-falling motion happens only because of gravity. With this, he inferred that objects in vacuum fall uniform acceleration and force is not necessary to sustain horizontal motion.
And that's it. Now, let's proceed to the next video.
Let's move on to describing in graphic motion. You are to know how the position versus time graphs of constant velocity motion are different from those of constant acceleration motion.
But before that, let's define what is uniform velocity. An object is said to have uniform velocity if the distance of motion and the rate at which an object changes its position is constant. In other words, an object with uniform velocity continues to cover the same amount of distance over the same amount of time interval without changing its direction.
Example, you are driving a car with a speed of 25 km per hour for an hour due to light traffic. The position of the car is changing, but your speed is constant.
We also have the uniform acceleration. If an object's speed or velocity is increasing at a constant rate, then we can say that it has a uniform acceleration. It means that the acceleration rate of an object is constant and not changing.
An example of uniform acceleration is the motion of a ball rolling down on inclined plane. The force of gravity points straight down, but the ball rolling down in an inclined plane doesn't go straight down. As the angle increases, the component of force parallel to increases and the component of force decreases. It is the component of the weight of an object that causes acceleration.
So moving forward to describing the graph of a uniform velocity motion reflects a straight diagonal line going upward. This happens because the object is changing its position, however, its velocity remains unchanged. With the equation, the velocity can be identified by this equation, the change in displacement over change in time. However, the graph of uniform acceleration motion reflects a curved line going upward. Now, this happens because the magnitude of velocity varies over time. And the distance is directly proportional to the time with this equation, which is distance is equal to time squared. Now, to wrap up this topic, the difference between the graphs of position versus time between the uniform velocity motion and uniform acceleration motion are: number one, the lines formed. In uniform velocity motion, the line formed is a diagonal line going upward, while the line formed in uniform acceleration motion is a curved line going upward. And number two, the distance covered of an object traveling with uniform acceleration is greater than the distance covered of an object with uniform velocity. Again, here is the graph of a uniform velocity motion, and here is the graph of a uniform acceleration motion.
On the next topic, we will be talking about the three laws of motion by the scientist named Isaac Newton, who has a great contribution in the field of science. The first law of motion is called the law of inertia.
The motorcycle that was sparked represents an object that is at rest, which means things like to stay where they are. If we are going to connect it to a human person, it is what we call laziness, but in science, it is known as inertia. The motorcycle that is moving show a uniform motion in a straight line that represent things want to keep doing what they are already doing. The continuous motion of the motorcycle state a constant velocity in which it is not stopping because of balance force. Because of the pedestrians that cross the road unexpectedly, the rider immediately pull the brake. And this thing that make the motor stop is called frictional force that causes unbalanced force. In this video, coin represent an object at rest that remains at rest unless acted upon by an external force that make it drop to the water. Again, to make object that is in the constant velocity stop because of balance force, the object will be needing frictional force that will make unbalanced force.
And that concludes the first law, the law of inertia. The next law that we will be talking about is the law of acceleration.
What is the second law of motion? Newton's second law of motion pertains to the behavior of objects for which all existing forces are not balanced. The second law states that the acceleration of an object is dependent upon two variables: the net force acting upon the object and the mass of the object. One good example of this is when we climb stairs. As we saw, The girl climbed the stairs faster compared to the boy. This is because the girl has less weight compared to the boy, requiring less force to be used, thus making it easier and faster for her to climb the stairs. And as the second law suggests, the mass of an object is inversely proportional to its acceleration, meaning as the mass of an object increases, its acceleration decreases, vice versa. Another example of this is when we pull chairs whenever we rearrange them after we clean our room. As we saw, even though the boy was the first one to pull his chair, the girl and the boy beside him were still able to pull theirs faster. This is because they both pulled the same chair, applying more force, thus making it easier for them to pull it. And as the second law suggests, the amount of force acting upon an object is directly proportional to its acceleration, meaning as the amount of force acting upon an object increases, its acceleration also increases, vice versa.
And that summarizes the second law of motion, the law of acceleration. For the last topic, we will be having the law of action-reaction.
Isaac Newton's law of interaction states that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. As the basketball hits the floor, it signifies a downward force. That serves as the action. The floor reacts by pushing the basketball upwards with the same force. That is the reaction. Two basketball players bump with each other with same force. Both bodies were pushed back with the same force to the different direction. The player with white polo was pushed back more due to his lesser mass than the player with the black shirt. Weight and size, the mass, is significant. When two objects that have an equal mass collide, it would accelerate to different rates. The smaller or lighter the object, the more it accelerates. The larger the mass, the more inertia, and would have a greater capacity to resist change in its state of motion.
And that will wrap up the three laws of motion by Sir Isaac Newton. Now, there you go. Hope you guys gather some facts
and share it to the others.
Once again, this is PA-SIYENSIYA, empowering your science knowledge.